So it's that time of the year, and for us, the sixth year in a row where we sit down and do our predictions, and we always get it wrong, around the Oscars. Duarte, welcome. Thank you so much. For the first time, well, to all of you seeing us or watching us on YouTube video, for those in Spotify, you're benefiting from our beautiful faces made for radio. As usual, it's not the show is about the Oscars. This episode is about the Oscars, but we always like to take the opportunity to see this as the end of a cycle. Moving to another round two of our Barbie debate, we have the Best Director category. I have two things to say. I'm not surprised that, well, three things actually. Greta Gerwig, for me, shouldn't be in, and that was the right call. Yorgos Lanthimos, again, not for me. I think he brings his vision, but shouldn't be there. And the other thing is, and this you'll probably agree with me, is that I could name 5 female directors that could have been recognized and should have been recognized in 2023, and not even mention Greta Gerwig. So, but now over to you to take that.
Well, on Greta, I think for me, given, and again, I'm by doing this podcast with you right now, I'm actually discovering more about my own feelings regarding Barbie. There's things that
I used to play with them, and now it's all the nostalgia.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, I just feel like there's quite a lot of things that I haven't really processed or actually got to a conclusive.
Yes.
Because I will wake up one day and feel very positive about Barbie on lots of different aspects. And some days I will wake up and I'll be a bit more critical about it. I will still not trash it, not at all. I think even in a bad day, I will always think that Barbie was a good movie. So that I will never change. What I will say is that in some categories, I think that the recognition was either deserved or maybe overhyped. On the directing side, however, I do think that I will be consistent in saying that Greta, for everything that she's done, for the vision that she was able to bring to the table, for the boldness of her decisions, really overall with just about anything from the script to the set design to the casting to having to incorporate, thought-provoking themes with musical bits, with comedy bits. It's just a movie that kind of takes you through a very distinct journey and taps into different feelings, and I thought that was fantastic. So I'm very sad to see that she hasn't been recognized for what she brought to the table. I know that she's going up against a really strong category.
But let me just, on that, because you were making me think that actually we share opinions that are closer than we think around the movie. I just think what you described is a result of a very well-written script. You think it's the direction. For me, the direction did nothing. Anybody could have, there's nothing distinct, say what you will, and I will say it about Yorgos Lanthimos, but there is a vision, there is a style. I'm not saying everybody should like Christopher Nolan brought it, Martin Scorsese brought it. I think what you pointed as the reasons why she should be nominated is everything you said positive about the movie.
No, but hold on. But don't you think there's a clear vision that is quite...
That's the result of the script she wrote, not anything anyone could direct that. I don't think there's nothing there given that map, anybody else would have gotten to the same direction. I don't think there's nothing there that I would say, Jesus.
I see what you mean.
We agree on the same positives, we just attribute them to different sources.
Sure.
That's just it. And you think the script is ? Why is it here? I think direction, she isn't. Great. But at the end of the day, we're just recognizing the same person, the same movie, and for the same reasons, but in different categories.
I just feel like when I'm picturing her, especially on this category, I just imagine her more as a puppet master, like pulling all the strings and making all these things happen. Even if you have a good roadmap, it might be the execution might not turn out the same if it's something completely different. Because not only she has a very specific way of doing things, but also because she decides to take some risks in terms of that same execution.
Fair enough.
So that's why I think she could have probably gotten with the nomination, and also just a recognition of the fact that she was able to produce a movie that a lot of people had serious doubts about. I think many people were laughing when the idea of Barbie was announced into the world. And certainly no one thought it would be the critical success there was.
Yes.
Maybe commercially you had that
Yes.
question mark, but other than that, I don't think people would expect anything else out of it.
Very true.
And the fact that it was able to like surprise everyone also by having the movie. This is also the other thing that I don't forget, which I thought was quite interesting. And it's part of also the bold decision and this is such a compliment to cinema overall, but
Yeah.
also by having film released at the same time as Oppenheimer as well. So
I think there are more elements there, like Warner and Nolan's, like
yeah, sure. But all that
but
stuff.
the Barbenheimer meme. There was a lot of marketing behind it.
Yeah.
And I think, like, when it comes to the commercial success, it was anything but I think it was almost guaranteed. The critical success, as you pointed out, not so much. The laughing idea, I think after the Lego movie, nobody's laughing at, like, I sound like the Joker, but nobody's laughing now. I think it's like these days, you really can't, like, okay, Pixels, for example, yeah, that was laughable, but again, I thought the fact that studios approve these movies, they greenlight these productions, because nobody's laughing. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't think it was a film that, if you were to remove the casting, because I think that the names bring a lot of people to the room, to the cinema. If you were to remove the casting, I think Barbie as a brand is very specific to a certain audience, and so I think there's a whole part of the world that I think instantly was very dismissive of the film, and this is why I think it's laughable, because like, there's no way you're going to catch me at the cinema watching this movie, especially when it's going up against Oppenheimer. Oh, you know in which movie I'll be, which of these two movies I'll be watching. But then all of a sudden, all these people that were saying like, you'll never catch me watching this movie, they're not only watching the movie, but they're delighted at it.
Well, the delightful bit, no, but I did Barbenheimer. I was there. Back to back. I can't believe. I mean, I was pretty clear that I was going to do it. A lot of people are saying, "Yo, you did it?" I was like, "Yes."
I will say this is very surprising to me.
I did Barbenheimer,
and I'm very proud of you for
in the wrong order, because I watched Oppenheimer and then Barbie, because it doesn't do Barbenheimer, so I should have done it the other way.
But that's how it was
meant to be enjoyed.
Well,
right?
A lot of the celebrities, then when they were asked about which is the order that you prefer, they all said, "Oh, I want to watch Oppenheimer in the morning," and then to lighten the moods, I want to watch Barbie. To stay in a good note. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think for me it really comes down to that in terms of Greta's role and how I think it should have been. She should have had the chance to shine through this category, but ultimately she has the chance to do so the same way through that screenplay. Although I don't recall, is the nomination falling solely upon her husband?
No, Baumbach?
Yeah, because
no, the script. She's also nominated. She's nominated.
Because there was also some conversation about
who did who
exactly. Or who did what?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
2-1 Ireland, and who did who, and you get the Carey Mulligan one. Okay, cool.
You're winning.
Oh no, I'm winning, like on the flop bit of this episode. Yeah, no, I'm with you, right? And I think the fact that like, let's nominate everyone, and only one movie comes to mind, The Deer Hunter, and I think 6 people, probably less, but like a lot of people are credited with like the nomination. just because it was inspired by the story, and then there was elements from that story, and this, and that. So, I mean, either you're going to be completely expansive about like who is part of it, and I guess that's the reason why if we don't know if Paul Thomas Anderson was involved, guess what? We're not going to nominate this movie.
Yeah, that's so crazy to me.
Yeah, no, I was surprised. I was like, no, it can't be the Paul Thomas Anderson, right? Because that can only make you sell a movie more. But yeah, no, listen, there at the end of the day, Paul Thomas Anderson and Martin Scorsese are not married. Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig are. So it's a creative partnership that has been, like, maybe she did some rewrites on Marriage Story, maybe you did something on Lady Bird, and who knows, right? So I'm not too fussed. I think if they sleep in the same bed, happy at night, who cares? But yeah, no, they're both recognized. I think it's both their styles are becoming more, I don't know, close to each other. So who can tell it apart?
Okay.
So I'm not too fussed around that. I think on the other nominees,
the ones that are actually on the list.
On the list, yeah. Scorsese, again, my favorite director of all time. Like, nothing to point out there. The vision, everything is just he needs to be recognized, and is now the second most nominated director in history. Not bad for someone who for decades was ignored by the Academy, and now he's like making it up when he's 81, 82.
Yeah.
I think the Jonathan Glazer nomination for his fourth picture is also well deserved. I think. I mean, I haven't seen Birth, but both his other two of his other movies, Sexy Beast and Under the Skin, was so well executed and so different that I'm just really happy to see him nominated.
I've not seen any of his films yet.
Oh yeah. The thing is that he only directed 4, right? Counting with, well, you've seen Zone of Interest, right? So the other 3, they're so different because he starts with a comedy, then he goes into something more on the supernatural, then it's a minimalist sci-fi bit, then it's a World War II / Holocaust piece. But all of them, they're like, Sexy Beast is not a straightforward comedy. It's not like Police Academy or something like that. Like, but again, great performances.
Hold on, Sexy Beast is a comedy?
It is a comedy. It's about that the mafia guy, like in.
Oh, but I thought it was kind of like British gritty.
No, it's a comedy. Like, I was having fun. Like, with they keep mocking like the Brits that are in Spain, like with the pan that borders on skin cancer. They'll look beautiful, crisp like the bacon they have at breakfast.
Skin like leather.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think to me it is a comedy with dramatic elements, of course, but still he did with 4 pictures he did things that are completely different. So, but still like very, very good. I haven't seen Birth. I'm talking about the plot line, not the movie. So I'm very happy to see him nominated. I think who else do we have here? Justine Triet, I think more than justified. She captures that Brian De Palma /
good shot, actually.
Brian De Palma Hitchcock thing.
Yeah,
right?
I get it.
And I think it's extremely well made, the movie, and also it would have been easy for her to embark in this feminist journey. And to me, the movie feels quite balanced. I don't know. We'll get to that, but what are your take? What's your take?
No, listen, I think the list is pretty strong. We've mentioned obviously Greta, and if I was to try and replace someone here, would maybe be Justine, because again, what she's done here, I sort of feel like I've seen it before.
Yeah,
I almost felt tempted to do something with Jonathan as well, but it's tricky because I did think that he delivered a really outstanding piece with the Zone of Interest. So I'll be very scared to touch that one. But I'm almost wanting to do it just because I feel like I need to put Greta there somehow. And by the way, and this is also ignoring someone else who is left outside this list. Well, again, we've spoken about, which is Celine's song with Past Lives. So there's a part of me that wants to put those 2 in. But again, in a list that is so competitive as this one,
it is a very competitive.
It's really tricky to touch it. You've already talked about the master Scorsese, and I think whatever he does is always incredible. And I did actually think that he managed to do something wonderful with Killers of the Flower Moon. I just thought it was an astonishing film. But if I was going to pick a winner, maybe because it kind of brings all these things together, is Christopher Nolan with Oppenheimer.
I was about to get there, and we're gonna bring it all home with Christopher Nolan. I just wanted to say, back to not to leave any loose threads. I will make a comment about the director, but in the acting category, and you know who I'm talking about. But I'm just gonna say that I did mention that I could easily fill the category with just female directors in 2023 movies, and not mention Greta Gerwig. I think if we had to go, Sofia Coppola, and again Priscilla, something like The Vision is there. I think Emerald Fennell, Saltburn. Yes, you'll disagree. Celine Song. Yeah, and like I would go with the what was it? Carrie Freeman Craig, and also the other one that directed the movie you liked. She also has three names. No. The other movie.
No one.
Molly Manning Walker, who directed How to Have Sex.
How to Have Sex, yeah.
Right. So I mean, just put those names like based on the.
That's another film, for instance.
There you go.
Well, I know that obviously Zone of Interest went into the foreign film or international film category, and so it's representing UK. That's another film for me that I thought would be in some way making its way into could have made its way into the international category by representing UK. Of course, I know now that the criteria doesn't.
I didn't know that it was so like. Yeah, that it needs to be a non-English speaking movie.
So, but in terms of other outside of the US, other countries that produce films, I thought that somehow that movie could have received some sort of other recognition. I did think it was a wonderful film. It was one of my favorite films of the year as well. I think it was when we were discussing my top 10 at the beginning of the episode. That was certainly on my list.
Okay.
For sure. And I did love it. I wouldn't say the same thing about Priscilla for sure. I thought it was...
And I hate biopics, and we'll get to there in a bit.
I thought it was just meh. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I could have lived without watching that. And Saltburn, I went in with high expectations, and I mean, I just didn't like most of it. I don't know how much I gave it on Letterboxd. If it was like a 2.5 stars.
I think it wasn't good, because I remember reading or seeing the stars you gave, and I was like,
could appreciate some things, like some bits I liked. Barry Keoghan and Rosamund Pike. I think both of them were great.
Even Jacob Elordi and I have.
Jacob is okay. Jacob is okay. Richard E. Grant, I thought he was on point. Great. Yeah,
he's terrific. I completely forgot like he was in the movie. Well, obviously at the time I realized that he was like great. And just the whole dynamic, I agree. But I respect your take on, and I respect all the criticism that was pointed out, because I made it as well.
You said
that I respect your criticism.
You were going to say 5 female directors. No, hold on. You said How to Have Sex. You said...
okay, so I said Emerald Fennell.
Yeah.
Justine Triet stays.
Okay.
Sofia Coppola.
So not another 5... I thought it was 5.
Oh, no. I said, okay, counting with...
Understood. All right.
Don't try to make it 3-1, because it's still 2-1.
I've done it.
But I respect your opinion about like Saltburn, and I mean, I'm looking forward to see. I think she suffered from the same fate as Jordan Peele. Second movie, people high expectations, this and that, and let's see what she comes up with on a third one.
What do you mean?
People like
Us was great, wasn't it?
Oh, I loved it.
Me too.
To me, the downfall was Nope. That's the one I don't like.
Nope, I didn't love it.
But no, the critics didn't go for it, right? Us, they didn't. No. I remember critics didn't, or they weren't as supportive as they were about.
I'm going to say this. Well, I mean, I haven't seen anything yet, but I would say that whereas Get Out was like in the 90-something% on Rotten Tomatoes, I'm going to say I'm going to risk it on 80 above.
I don't think so. Especially, well, I may be wrong.
Let's see. 93.
93?
Yeah.
Must have been adjusted to inflation. That's the only reason. I'm never wrong. No. Listen, maybe the reason, and I stand corrected 3-1. The reason why I probably said this.
But interestingly, hold on. Sorry to interrupt. Interestingly, though, the audience score was quite average. Was 60%.
There you go. So it wasn't the critics. I think what I'm mixing here, and again,
your gut feeling was right.
No. It's because at the same time he came out with the Twilight Zone, his reboot, right? And that I can assure you was trashed by the critics because I remember reading it, and because it was released roughly at the same time, same year. That's why I'm probably mixing the two of them. And
No,
I
but
was just like-
I don't know what you.
But I
Where
mean,
you
I think it wasn't as enthusiastic as Get Out. Like when Us was around, I loved it, but people would just say, it's more of the same. Let's see what he comes up with his fourth movie, Jordan Peele, but we'll save that for 2024 and beyond expectations.
Yeah.
Finishing with Christopher Nolan, I think he should win. I think he will win. I think it became very fashionable to trash Christopher Nolan in recent years. Just because after Tenet, to me, and I know you disagree, it was Interstellar, the point where I was like, this is the lowest point I've seen Nolan in. So to me, Tenet, I included in my top 10 of 2020.
I hated Tenet.
He's going to come out with a sequel.
I
Rumors.
hated it so much. Interstellar was a weird one.
Yeah, you have a story with that movie, right?
Yeah, I didn't love it the first time I saw it. I thought it was okay. I didn't trash it. I just think it was okay, but my expectation was quite high. I remember watching the trailer and getting goosebumps and just getting really excited.
Yeah.
And so something was off. But maybe I was just in the wrong day. Maybe my mind wasn't there. Sometimes these things happen.
Yes.
It's funny. I was having a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, and he was going through Maestro. And I don't want to judge the quality of the film. I just his experience.
Sure.
He said that he watched the first 30 minutes and he hated it. And he put a pause and he was feeling tired, and he came back the next day, picked up the movie where he left off, loved it, and loved it so much that he ended up watching the first 30 minutes again and loved everything about it. So this got us to talk about how being in the right place at the right time has a huge impact. And I feel that with Interstellar, that might have been the issue with me, because the second time around that I got to see it, and I watched it with my mom, who is probably one of the most insightful minds when watching cinema, and I always learn a lot from her. When I watched Interstellar, it just gained a whole different meaning, and I went from like giving it maybe like a 3-star or 2.5 stars to 5 stars, and becoming one of my Nolan's favorites.
Fair enough.
So I loved it. I wouldn't be part of that crowd that trashes Nolan, although I did think that Tenet was not up to his standard.
Fair enough. Listen, I think we can single out X or Y movie. We both did, just did. The point is, I think in the case of Christopher Nolan, is he started as a resourceful guy that did a lot with very little, and now he's a guy who keeps needing more and more and more, and he shows no signs of stopping. Like, the bigger the budget, the better. And I think
don't you love that though? I love that.
I do. No, listen, I'm not criticizing that. I'm saying that's a reason why people attack him. And so when you're dealing with and this is the same for Scorsese, but obviously Scorsese has a body of work that spans like 5-6 decades. Nolan doesn't have that just because of the age difference. But I mean, with everything that he kept doing, and the recurring memes there is about his interpretation of Michael Mann's Heat, all that stuff, I think there is a big backlash. And so if someone has everything at his disposal and doesn't deliver, like it's the case with Tenet, people are very keen to trash the director. I think with Oppenheimer, I still think the movie should have been nominated in the visual effects category. But that said, I think Christopher Nolan did something great. After all, he's partially responsible for the change that the Academy underwent in the last 20 years or so because of The Dark Knight, right? And also he embodied, or he created something that is the cornerstone of the Marvel-DC rivalry. You can correct me here, but his style, the dark, broody kind of thing, was what made the movie work and became a staple of DC.
Yeah. I don't really feel like I have a lot to add to that without getting into to a lot of really quirky specifics. But
yeah,
he kind of like picked. I look at The Dark Knight and I don't even think of a comic book movie.
No.
Which I think is what makes it stand out from every other DC and Marvel film, where it's obviously like based on absolute fantasy, whereas there, you take off the bat suit and really,
it could have been Heat.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely.
Exactly.
The second one in particular with Heath Ledger, Joker.
And I think this, for the first time, despite everything he had at his disposal, he came through. Christopher Nolan, and I think like it's about time he gets recognized. And he will most likely win. It just won the Directors Guild Award. It's a matter of time. I think now, like, we're getting into the final categories. There are just two ones that I would like to briefly run over, and one of them is the visual effects category. Again, Oppenheimer, just because of the practical effects, wasn't considered. But I don't know if
I'll
you've
let you
seen.
talk about this one.
No. Just Godzilla -1.
No.
I think no, you don't think you've seen.
I've not seen it.
I have not seen it. I think again, this is doing a lot with very little, and I think it's very effective, and it beats every single other Godzilla movie that has been released in recent years. The other bit I would like to mention is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, or Dead Reckoning because they're rewriting the movie. For the first time, there was a movie in that franchise nominated in 2 categories, and I think it's about high time that we found those movies being appreciated for what they are, like the excellent action titles.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to. I'm not going to go into the details of these categories. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
The other bit would be on the score. Again, the John Williams nomination for Indiana Jones 5.
I mean, it's just because we've heard it before, right?
Yeah, there's nothing new there, and I would say, like, for the last few years, this is like the culmination of my not resentment, but my opinion around what he did for the last Star Wars movies. And I was like, dude, he should have been nominated for Episode 1. And I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I recall the soundtrack perfectly for that movie, and he wasn't. So, I mean, listen, is there a need? Not really. Also, I'm hoping I'm Just Can wins Best Original Song. I know they're probably going to give it to the, what's the name? Billie Eilish. What was I made for, right? But I think it's, if they do, and scores in, I mean, I had something to say here because we're talking about Dexter Gordon, like when Ennio Morricone lost to Herbie Hancock in 87, when Herbie Hancock delivered only like existing musical pieces, and they had to change the regulation. So, I mean, like that category of sound, of original score and original song, to me, like I'll never understand the rules, and I never take them too seriously because like those rules dictate omissions, grave omissions. But that said, I think I'm Just Ken should win. I know that the Academy is trying to not take themselves too seriously. That's why they pick Jimmy Kimmel, the most unfunny person I know working in Hollywood, to host the Oscars.
I think he's very funny.
That's fake, sir.
No.
He's the worst. Out of all the nighttime ones, he's like,
I know.
like the biggest Muppet I've ever seen, like the most unfunny guy out of them.
Okay.
And but I think I'm Just Ken should win, just to see Ryan Gosling's face.
Yeah. Well,
I want that.
I don't think it will, but I do think that it's going to be a toss between.
Oh, it will be Barbie's to take.
Exactly.
But
can I just say something? I know we're not meant to talk about the.
So
the score.
why are we talking now?
Well, just because I want to mention one thing that will touch on something else, just because I want to be provocative here. I watched the movie days ago, which is nominated for Best Animated Film, The Boy and the Heron.
Oh yeah.
I hated it, and it's really frustrating because everyone's saying that it's a brilliant piece of art. I just feel like I'm the only one left out. I feel like I'm the only one who's seen the movie.
You're talking to someone who's never watched the Miyazaki movies.
But maybe if you watched it, I don't know if you. I don't know. I just know that all the critics. Yesterday I was like going through some Letterboxd account, and there was lots of comments saying, "Oh my God, I loved how he talked about his childhood and all these things, and you could really see what he was going for." Like, man, I was confused the entire time. I had no idea what the hell he was talking about, and I honestly, I feel like if you're telling me that you understood everything, you're lying. 100% you are lying, unless you came prepared before you watched the movie and you read something about it and you read all the spoilers and all these things and you just like did the homework.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hated the film, but the only reason why I gave it 1.5 stars on my Letterboxd was because A, the animation is indeed very beautiful, and B, most importantly, which bridges me to the score, the music was astonishing. It was incredible. And outside of American Fiction, which I also like, but I'm biased because it had a very very big jazz element to it. And I'm really into jazz. I think outside of that, The Boy and the Heron had probably the most beautiful soundtrack. It was majestic. It was honestly majestic. The movie's crap. Don't get me
I'm just
started.
laughing because you remind me, like when you described the Letterboxd. I don't know if you remember, this was the Golden Globes many years ago, and
I'm
you
so
had
angry. I was
Will,
so
Will
angry.
Ferrell and Kristen Wiig going like through the nominees, and you're like. The way they hadn't seen the movies, and they're like, "Oh, and when this happens," I was like, thinking, and when the boy, and then the heron comes in, and they're like, "Whoa!" And then he goes, "You're the boy, but you're the heron." It's a beautiful moment, and it touches into the childhood when he was a boy, Miyazaki, and there was a heron.
I'm sure. Listen, I'm sure that a lot of people. I'm sure that a lot of people judging this film had that same thought process, were complimenting on things that they didn't even understand, and I could just hear them in my mind saying like, "Dude, it's not our fault that you didn't understand the movie. Why are you trying to pick on us?" It's like, yeah, okay, sure. I know I'm being
An idiot, yeah.
I know I'm being difficult here, but I was just so frustrated. Like, what is it? I consider myself a sensitive guy. I consider myself reasonably well educated with a good pedigree of watching films, and like I would really really struggle to piece any of this film together. I just honestly and by the way, I was not the only one. I went with my wife. She felt the same way. And also I spoke to two different people, both of which were huge fans of his work.
Miyazaki.
And I said, like, listen, is it just me? Am I crazy? And both of them were like, yeah, this one was a tricky one to get. I also didn't follow. I love all of his work,
Yeah.
but this demands a second viewing. And I'm like, well, but if you're telling me that I need to read something about it and then watch it a second time, for me, that's a lot of hard work. I should be able to understand. It's one thing if you, on the second viewing, you learn different things,
Yeah.
but you get the core of it beforehand. And I'm sorry, I'm just going really into this. But
No.
this has been
Let it all out.
this has been my pet peeve of the year, I think, when it comes to movies. And also because I loved Spirited Away,
Yes.
and I really wanted to love this film, and so I could discuss it on a positive note.
But you couldn't.
But yeah, and we said that we wouldn't discuss animation.
Oh no! But just because I haven't seen anything this year when it comes to animation and the way Pixar is heading out, like I think I need to start looking into Japan. To your point, I just think you are just a boy in a world of herons, and
Let's move on. Next category.
okay. I think like the only thing I'd like to point out before we get to the final major categories is international feature. Fallen Leaves, Emission. Okay, why? But Perfect Days. I'm so glad it's there. We know that Justine Triet's Anatomy of a Fall wasn't there because, well, alleged conflicts that we found out just before recording this. But,
Yeah.
we knew that there was a conflict, but we didn't know the reasons.
Yeah.
I think it's not as star-studded, this category, as it has been in years before. I think that the Society of the Snow, a lot of people liked it, or at least watched it.
I want to watch it.
But yeah, at least Perfect Days and...
But you were saying that. I actually think you're almost contradicting yourself.
What?
Because you were saying, it's not.
No.
category.
I'm saying the year was great. The movies that were recognized in this category do not reflect the greatness of the year. That's what I'm saying.
I'm dying. Have you seen The Teacher's Lounge?
No.
Man, I watched that trailer a couple months ago, and I am so curious to watch it, and also because it kind of apparently sheds a light in the education.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, I thought it was quite intriguing the way that they kind of made it everything sort of like vague and mysterious, and just a little side note, obviously, because my wife used to be a
teacher.
I'm just dying to watch it. Whether it's like, does any of this resonate with you? Have you seen any of this or whatever? Anyway, I thought it really enticed my appetite. So out of all the movies here on this list
Yeah.
that I haven't seen, and from what I'm seeing now, I've only seen the one, The Zone of Adventure.
Zone of Interest, yeah.
Teacher's Lounge is probably the one that I'm most curious to watch outside of Perfect Days, because Perfect Days, I've had lots of people say the most wonderful things about it.
Yeah.
The Teacher's Lounge is probably the only one that no one that I know has seen it or had anything to say about it.
Yeah. No. I haven't seen any single review up to the point of knowing it's a German movie. That's it. I think again, just the titles for such a competitive year, and I feel this year about this category the way I feel about Best Documentary. It's like Best Documentary, you see, like, okay, last year was the exception, Fire of Love, but some years you watch great documentaries like Zappa, like hopefully this year we'll get the Christopher Reeve documentary, but you see do we think that it's going to be nominated? The answer is no, because they always seem to go no. Like best documentary seems to be like off limits to like anything remotely popular. I think this year, unfortunately, I think the same about international feature. I think like especially Fallen Leaves, it was great. I think it could have easily gotten in, but here we are.
Which country is Fallen Leaves?
Finland. Yeah, it has a very dry finish. It is good. It's only 89 minutes or something like that, or 92. And so we're down to the last three categories: best actor, best actress, and picture. We were talking just seconds before around our some of the performances we haven't seen, but we saw most of them, and we covered Paul Giamatti. We talked about the fact that we haven't seen Coleman Domingo,
Yeah.
and we mentioned Cillian Murphy. So yeah, I think Paul Giamatti will win. That's my gut feel, even though I would like to see the full Oppenheimer sweep with Cillian Murphy winning. I have to say, in this category, I was surprised not to see Leo DiCaprio. I don't think I saw a lot of people trashing his performance, or not surprised that he wasn't included. I think honestly, there is some, I don't know, like the kind of naivete of that character. It's almost like the early stages of a role he was nominated for, the Wolf of Wall Street, like as Jordan Belfort. So I mean, I don't think it's that effortless like his performance. I think there's a lot more involved. I don't know your take on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's definitely. I mean, it's so hard to call it a snub because I haven't seen Coleman, so I can't really comment on that. And everyone else on that list is great. I don't know if I would switch any of them for Leo, or even for Andrew Scott, who I was also considering for All of Us Strangers. And by the way, that was very meaningful film, very deep, very thought provoking. For me, it was quite on the nerve on something that I am quite sensitive to.
Yes.
So anyway, the film resonated with me in a lot of different ways, and is down partially to his wonderful performance. But again, it's really hard to put it in there. Leo, I thought he was such a good character.
Yes.
In Killers of the Flower Moon, just because I'm not so used to seeing him play that kind of like
Vulnerable.
Yeah, and it's almost like in not just that he was vulnerable, because also there was a lot of malice in him, there was a lot of greed in him. The fact that he was, I know you'll probably say that he was kind of sort of like not tricked, but influenced by his evil uncle.
Yeah, but I mean, to your point, I think it's all that and more. Like then you also have, I genuinely think he loved his wife.
Oh,
Right.
It's tricky. I can understand that he's not indifferent to her. Like,
yes.
He has feelings for her, but I don't love, I think, is just maybe
a very strong
far.
word.
Exactly, because if he truly loved her, he would not go to the extent of where he went in terms of the horrible things that he did to her. Because I think it was him first, and then
everybody else. Well,
exactly
what his uncle told him to do, and what it should be him
Precisely.
first. Yeah,
but at the end of the day, it's him making
it's
the call.
him. Yeah.
So that's why I wouldn't go as,
yeah.
He's definitely, there's a side of vulnerability to him, and he's quite easy to influence. Right?
Yeah.
But I also think that he has the capacity for great evil, and that's what we end up seeing in the big screen.
Exactly. So in essence, a complex character.
Yeah, very
well
complex.
delivered. So I think actually he should have been nominated in my book. The only person I would replace is Bradley Cooper, and this is where people who know me know I have very little respect for biopics, and my opinion of Bradley Cooper, both as an actor and a filmmaker, hasn't changed. In fact, I'll use a little comparison here, and this is not the Let's Trash Bradley Cooper, but we talked about this.
Sounds like it.
No. Well, he was funny in The Hangover. He was replaceable in Silver Linings, and he was adequate in American Hustle. Now, I think he's much like Steve McQueen in the sense that he's a movie star, not an actor. And now he's trying to be Robert Redford, so a director as well as an actor. So, and the Academy, and he ends up being neither. He ends up being Warren Beatty, someone whom the Academy just had to recognize he had talent, but they didn't particularly care for him. And this is what we're seeing. They'll nominate him, this and that. Warren Beatty ended up winning the award, but they always teased him and deprived him from getting like Best Picture, which it could have done with 1981's Red. So I think this is what's happening. And with Bradley Cooper, it's just like that craziness of, oh, I need that award, I need that validation. And regarding the 6 years of studying for a scene of 6 minutes, I'm reminded of what Laurence Olivier told Dustin Hoffman. Have you tried acting, dear boy? Right? I don't buy it. I don't think it's that critical, and by all those crazy things and habits that only established directors can pull off, such as the no chairs on the set thing, if you read it. Like, that only resulted in only one thing, him not having a seat at the director's table to discuss. So I think if we even if people don't give the money, and they don't because, like, A, it's on Netflix, and 2, it's pointless. There's no way to measure if that movie would have been successful had it been in the cinemas. If we keep incentivizing people to go through the lazy way of the biopic, we're pretty much doomed, and we're gonna have like a mess in our hands. We already have it with Bob Marley's biopic. I made a joke about a Michael Jackson biopic. Turns out they're actually making one. I mean, why? Read a book, watch a documentary, do something else. Unless, A, you're passionate about it. And I don't think Bradley Cooper, I don't see the connection. Maybe he was really passionate about the work of Leonard Bernstein. I don't know.
I mean, he talks passionately about it, and for him to invest that much time on this particular character, I don't think is just about getting an easy way into an award. I mean, listen, I think you're coming from a perspective that obviously has a little degree of bias, which you
I recognize, yes,
exactly, because you have disdain for biopics. I, on the other hand, although I don't think they're necessary,
evil.
I think they provide a good source of entertainment and of education as well. I think it's easy. It's much easier to digest a biopic
than a
documentary. And then I think it's a good way to get us into some more obscure personalities quite often. I don't think a Michael Jackson, for instance, is necessary in the same way as a Leonard Bernstein, because Leonard Bernstein, although very popular and very iconic, is not known to the masses as an MJ was.
These days, he was.
Well, sure, but maybe I don't. I guess because maybe we were living different times, and how you be able to mass broadcast the work of someone is very different.
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure if Leonard Bernstein's music, aside from what he did on, and then this is coming from a side of ignorance, I don't know if it would be as highly digestible as Michael's music, which was
no. Nobody's comparing. It's apples and oranges. You're absolutely right. That said, I just think that this is the kind of wrong behavior we don't really want to incentivize. Just because, like, for example, you can also argue that Pedro Oppenheimer is a biopic in a way.
But it's
and I recognize it, but it's the kind of thing that makes you think about it. You come out and like you make your own judgment about whether the bomb droppings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki were justified or not. You see a lot happening, and it's told in a very good way. I don't think there's a lot of bias there.
But going to the main answer, I think because I don't think it's your natural biopic in the sense that it just tells you like the story from Leonard when he was a little kid, how he found his passion for music, and no, it specifically focuses on his relationship with his wife, and is sort of, I don't want to say closeted because everyone knew that he was at least bisexual, and that he was quite I don't want to say proactive, but anyway, he was he was very much a very sexually engaged character, and so that obviously created
Tension.
between him and his wife, and then naturally bleeded out into his relationship with his kids. So anyway, I think is sort of a different take on a biopic. It's not your traditional biopic. And then the thing that you were mentioning about the whole 6 years training for that one scene, I mean, does it seem overkill? Perhaps. I don't know how much of a difference would have been if he had just winged it.
Yeah.
For the natural member of the audience.
Yes.
For the regular member of the audience.
Yeah.
But I do know that after watching that scene, I was blown away. I mean, it was easily, aside from the scene where he's having an argument with Carey Mulligan, with his wife,
Who was nominated in the leading.
exactly as the leading actress.
The first leading and supporting actress, as Tobias Funke would say.
I did think that scene in the cathedral was incredible. It really stayed with me in what I think was a decent film, an okay film, a good between the okay and the good film. Not astonishing, not incredible, but I did think that scene was elite.
Fine. So there were bits of that movie that are above average.
100%,
right?
And a lot of it to do with Carey, some of it to do with Bradley, who I really rate as an actor, by the way. And I've had actually the chance to see him on stage many years ago. He was doing a production of Elephant Man.
Oh yeah.
And he was playing Elephant Man, and it was him and Alessandro Nivola and Patricia Clarkson.
Wow.
And I thought he was really, really good, and for a charming, good-looking, young actor to pull off that role the way he did, I thought was quite a surprise. I didn't expect him to do that well.
Fair enough.
And I don't know, I think over the years it's now difficult to pinpoint every single film, but we highly disagree on A Star Is Born. I really liked it. I thought the film was great. I thought he was great. I thought his role behind the camera was fantastic. I'm really keen to see what he does next. I love hearing him talk about acting and the craft behind acting and directing. He's one of my favorite voices currently. Like there's one person that I love talking about acting. Actually, a couple of them. I always love listening to Marlon Brando. I always love listening to Ethan Hawke. I always think that he's super insightful.
Philip Seymour Hoffman when he was alive.
Exactly. And Bradley Cooper when he does it as well, I think he's quite insightful, and because you can see that he has that really keen interest. And it's actually funny, you often will see him if you go back to like archive footage of him at the actor's studio.
Yes, asking the questions.
And you can see that he's not just trying to raise his hand and talk to a movie star. I know you're probably disagreeing, but I really think that he cares about what he's asking. He's trying to learn. He's trying to perfect what he does. So anyway, I'm a fan.
Fine. Listen, we will disagree on this one, but again, to me, it's also that in the context of like we could argue that, for example, American Sniper.
Not seen it.
Again, Star Is Born. I didn't care for the movie, but that's really something to do with the whole story that has been told time and time again. I don't know. I just think this case it's just incentivizing the wrong thing because it's a lazy way to go for the awards. And also we will disagree on this, but I think if you're taking this sexuality of the man and that becomes the core element of the story, of the personality, I mean, I get it. I get why he chose that project and why he took that angle, because that's like that and Netflix audience, chef's kiss. It's like a combo made in heaven.
Sure.
Because but it is that, are we reducing Leonard Bernstein to that? Like, who cares about that angle? The man created amazing music, and again, you're diluting the whole thing because you're catering to one specific angle of his life. And you could say the same thing. Oh, but that wasn't explored in Bohemian Rhapsody or something like that.
But for a lot of people, that wasn't known. I don't recall if my mother. I feel like it was my mom who watched the movie, and she said to me, "I had no idea he was gay." And but
fine.
But then that opens a can of worms when you talk about his relationship, his convoluted relationship with his wife, and what went into that. There's the whole like doing things behind secret doors, how she knew but tolerated certain things as long as he as long as he didn't cross the line.
Yeah.
There's a particular scene. I mean, this is going to be a spoiler, but it's not a crucial one, where she sees him in the hallway holding hands and being
Yeah.
too intimate with the guy.
It's in the trailer.
Yeah, and so all these things are just like, oh, this adds tension. This adds, because how do
Fair
you
enough.
live with it?
Fair enough.
And often it's a really interesting topic. There's a movie that I really liked from last year, which actually I don't know how it would fit into the Oscars because I don't know when it was released, but I only saw it in 2023. It's called The Blue Kaftan. It's a Moroccan film, and it's also about sort of like a man in his 50s or whatever. He's closeted. He's married to his wife for many years. They work on a like a shop, and they get a kid who's trying to learn the ropes and learn from the master of the craft.
Yeah.
And basically, there's that moment where she's sort of like understanding what's going on, and she has to make that decision on whether or not to live with that, the shame of it at a society level. Anyway,
But that's like, I get it, and there's a specific context. It's a different world. It's a different reality, and that's worth being explored. Now, if you're doing like everything that is described or captured in Maestro, that was the case in 1950s America with a lot of couples, right?
Sure.
And I mean, there have been a lot of movies, a lot of angles. What was it? Far from Heaven with Julianne Moore, 2002. Again, so many movies that have tackled that we don't need another one and be a biopic. If you tell me it's a different context, it's Morocco, more conservative, different religion, predominant religion.
Sure.
I think there are a lot of elements that will make that story stand out.
But I'm not saying necessarily that
It's a comparable, yeah.
Well, and also because I'm not just saying it's either this subject or that subject. I think it's a combination of different things that make it I guess more interesting and more challenging for an actor like Bradley Cooper. But anyway, I really liked him. I thought he was great.
And now on to Best Actress.
And best is Carey Mulligan going for this?
I believe she
No,
is.
so
No, who isn't? Florence Pugh, who is British. Not Irish.
Carey, I think, is one of my absolute favorites, along with Lily and Emma. I think those are my top three. It's hard for me to pick who of them should win. I think if either of these three win,
I think it's between Emma Stone and Lily Gladstone.
Yeah, but I do think that Carey is, in my book, I think she's up there at the same level. I think she is as good as them. And if anything, I would say that out of the three names, Carey is, Lily obviously is new to the scene when it comes to the award season, right?
Yes.
Emma
Stone is well established.
Been there and she's won it. And then Carey, I don't think
she's been recognized multiple times, but never with the win.
Exactly. So this is why I feel like in some way she's been there. She's done enough to win one, and she hasn't yet.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to say like, let's award her and just compensate for all those years. No, I'm not about that.
Yeah.
But I would be like.
But there is that element. It does play out.
Sure, but I don't love it. So I would never make that an argument.
That wouldn't be the argument per se. And we talked about Robert Downey Jr., how it's one of the boxes that his performance ticks, but I get your point. And that's why, for me, it would be Lily Gladstone. I think Emma Stone already has one. And I've been watching recently, I watched the whole thing, The Curse, the TV show, highly recommended. She's great in that. And like, to me, that's like eons apart in terms of quality from what I've seen in Poor Things. And I've seen a lot of people, like a lot of actors taking those challenging roles, challenging in more ways than one. I'm for one, like I've seen De Niro in Awakenings, I've seen Tom Hanks in Forrest Gump, Sean Penn. Now I'm sounding like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. Retarded? Wasn't retarded. Shit, no. But anyways, Emma Stone's role didn't do anything for me. I think it's challenging, but again, it's showcasing of talent more than just like, wow. That to me, that was it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's your opinion, and I respect
it's like your opinion, dude.
I respect it. No, I think she's great. I really stay with me. I thought she brings that movie alive. I mean, obviously it's Yorgos vision, first and foremost, I think, but that only becomes possible because he can have someone like Emma and Mark to bring that vision together and bring it to life. But in one way, yes, I'm probably more inclined for Lily, just because I thought I always give extra credits when someone is stacked up against juggernauts like Leo DiCaprio or Robert De Niro,
Yeah.
and she's able to almost like outshine them in some ways.
It's her movie.
Exactly.
Thanks to Paul Thomas Anderson.
Exactly. So, which is something that I hadn't known.
Yeah, no, it came as a shock to me,
Yeah.
but no, I agree. I think Lily Gladstone, she commands, and I mean, I saw Martin Scorsese, and he was presenting the movie at the London Film Festival, and he immediately talked about, and he did that in multiple interviews when he was talking about the first time Leo and himself met Lily Gladstone via Zoom during COVID, and how impressed they both were, and that this is it. Like she's the actress, and I think again, it's really an outstanding performance. She commands your attention. She's there like almost like a balance between worlds, between the excesses of both worlds. And for me, my opinion, she should win. I'm happy to see Sandra Hüller nominated. Annette Bening again. I think Annette Bening is an interesting point here, and you mentioned Niad and they're like how the two actresses make the movie stand out. I think this goes to show like who makes the decisions and the whole Margot Robbie snub controversy, right? First of all, I was reading about something else, and it was an article. The image was linked to an article in GQ, right? And I'm bringing this up because they were like, well, you need to be careful about passion projects. Think about Waterworld 1986, which ruined Kevin Costner's career. And I was like, the fuck is this? Like, the movie was made 9 years after, and it was never Kevin Costner's career. And it got a passion project. And it got me thinking, this is where people are consuming their information, like generalist platforms. And I'm not criticizing because you consume, maybe you consume other kinds of information in generalist platforms. But they're consuming this from sources that know two things, jack and shit. It's very simple. And this is where the controversy came, and obviously it was silenced because there are more important things going on in the world. There's actually, like, there are two white women, so everybody was like, shh. So people became invested in the Margot Robbie, Greta Gerwig snub for like 2 seconds. And the whole article, like the tone of it was the Academy, like, there's some sort of obscure monolith that they live in a mountain of old people, like from an Ari Aster movie making decisions. No, these are actors. Actors vote for actors. And Margot Robbie's peers decided this is not a top 5 performance. And I agree with that. But this is where it's at, right? This is like, if Bradley Cooper doesn't win, this is like his peers saying, well, we don't go for you. And so this is also why Annette Bening was probably nominated, because she's Warren Beatty's wife after all, but she's been, like, she has all that history, all that stuff, and all that support and goodwill from the industry. And so I just wanted to, like, Annette Bening being in, Margot Robbie being out, and people's interpretation of things. And to me, like, people need to realize first, this is not a snub. She was nominated as a producer. I don't know what to say anymore. Just like,
I mean, I don't. Snubs will exist.
Yes,
we'll have years where we highly disagree on something. I think we can often say that maybe the panel of judges, regardless if it's their peers or not, might have gotten wrong. There's lots of decisions that over the years that both of us think is absolutely ludicrous, and you can say, oh yeah, but these were actors who've made a decision or whatever. Yeah, but do I trust their opinion on this matter? They can act, but that doesn't mean that they can...
The best judges.
Exactly.
Exactly. But that's the point, right? The thing is that they're trying to create this scapegoat on the Academy. But who is the Academy? And so you create a controversy. And this goes deeper without me getting too deep into the subject. This is how people consume, like, everything. From political decisions to any kind of news. There's no thinking, but who is the Academy? What are the news trying to tell me? And I'm not saying it's up for, like, the news outlets. They need to make money. There's clickbait. There's this and that. But people need to get, like, their thoughts together. And, like, the outrage that I saw, I was like, but why? Because, like, you're not an expert. You're just, like, saying something because you think it's right. Fine. But do you know, like, who made the decision?
I think generally, probably what's happening is, as soon as we're talking about the Academy, their main picture is a bunch of
white dudes, old dudes,
old men.
Yes.
And I mean, from I don't have the stats in front of me. I can't.
For many years it was.
But for many years, exactly. I mean, and if there was some change to it, the change happened, but it wasn't maybe as significant. So I think the criticism will still live on for a while, and maybe it will be justified. Again, we need to do the research.
Exactly,
to
but fantastic. But if that's the angle, I'm not gonna fight that. Let's then talk about that. But let's not do it now. Like, but in theory, let's take that as the issue, not Margot Robbie being snubbed. And I think this, to me, this is more than Barbie, Margot Robbie, or the Oscars. There are movies. Margot Robbie made lots of money. Who cares? And so did Greta Gerwig. It's about like these people that don't have the ability to go beyond and get enraged for something tiny, and they don't understand the context. They're also the ones dictating what gets greenlit or not in terms of movies, content, bigger decisions.
But those are different things. I mean, I don't know. Like I feel like at some point we're all part of that group of people. I don't distance myself from those. I've had stronger reactions to other things in my life with the Oscars. I remember when actually something that came with a huge delay. Like I was upset when Tom Hanks didn't get nominated for Captain Phillips, for instance. But over the years, I became increasingly more upset about it, because I value. It was one of those movies and performances that grew with me over time. And I had a discussion about it recently because my wife ended up seeing the film for the first time, and I really started to appreciate, in a much bigger degree, how incredible he had been. And it annoys me because one of the things that I instantly went to was like, oh yeah, they didn't want to get him a nomination because he's had all these nominations before and he's won twice, whatever. I don't know. I was trying to justify my. I'm not saying I was right. I'm just saying.
No, you were right.
I was lashing out.
It's still very confusing, like the whole relationship with Tom Hanks, because for a while it seemed like great, fantastic. Then after Castaway, desert, and he like Sully, Captain Phillips, he was in like a lot of award-nominated worthy performances. So I really don't know.
I just feel like it's understandable that people will be surprised to see a movie that did so well not get some people representing some of the main categories. Not mainly two women. Again,
who were recognized by the movie.
Yeah, but not in their elite categories. You would expect Greta to be nominated for director and Margot for acting. So that was the thing. It's not going to be enough for them to be involved as producers or anyway. Listen.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like I'm with you, right? But I think your outrage comes from a place of like an informed place. It's like, look, the Academy loved Tom Hanks. They no longer do. What gives? Who is the Academy? Actors, his peers, all the people that go on talk shows and say he's great. So I get it. Like, where are you coming from? And Tom Hanks has a very big impact in your life. I know that. But to me, like, this is a whole different beast. People are just outraged for a political message, and the whole fact that Barbie was politicized by the right and the left, and neither group got it right. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
so
it's just listen. We even when we're discussing like winners. I remember with Green Book won.
Yeah. Well,
the whole conversation about this is taking sides and this is trying to bring politics again into the Oscars. I always, when I think of like the most, like, I don't know what you think of when you think of the most outrageous win ever. I have a specific one, and to me, in my mind, I'm just like, how would you guys go for this person instead of this one when it was obvious that she's much better talent-wise, the role was much better in terms of what she did. It was this is a really huge pet peeve of mine. I get angry just talking about it. When Julia Roberts won for Erin Brockovich.
We don't need to talk about. I haven't seen Erin Brockovich.
Well, it should have won Ellen Bernstein. Ellen Bernstein for Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah. Well, that's.
But anyway,
that's a.
But I guess you're always going to be dissatisfied with some of the outcomes, and this will always bring us to pointing the fingers at people who make the decisions, calling them morons, and you don't know what you're talking about, and all that stuff.
No, it's not the people and the morons. I get it, but I mean, it comes from an informed place. Your anger or your resentment or your opinion. I think the generic opinion is like, oh, I was upset because only movie I watched this year in the cinema didn't get the awards, and these are the same people that thought Pearl Harbor was snubbed.
Sure.
That's where I'm coming from.
I mean, I had this. I remember I posted something about the whole Margot snub, and I got a lot of reaction. Interestingly enough, most people agree with me, but the reaction that I got saying that Margot should have been nominated, I'm like, okay, have you seen the other movies? No, I have not.
Yeah. So what's the criteria for comparison?
exactly.
What's your baseline?
Yeah.
No, that's exactly the point. And speaking of that, we get to the final category. I think we went through all the 10 movies, and this is a perfect circle because we established the internationalization of the Best Picture category. I think nowadays there's that need to recognize the top performer at the box office, something that started with Avatar in 2009, and that had been present way before. Except then you had titles like The Godfather and Rocky winning Oscars and the box office title as well. These days you don't. But so I think that there's that calibrated balance, and we're getting there. I'm not upset with the list. I think there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
Certainly some of the things I don't agree with, but again, it is what it is. But I think there's not a single movie we haven't covered and that has been nominated. That said, I've elected Killers of the Flower Moon as my best picture of 2023. You went for Past Lives.
Past Lives is my favorite one. Yeah.
We think Oppenheimer will win.
Yeah. I will say this in regards, and this is the thing that I kind of teased at some point in our conversation, and I want to bring it up to this point, but I've mentioned this in a few times when we were talking about the performances of the acting, and I think the same logic applies to the movies for Best Picture. So I think Oppenheimer is probably destined to win Best Picture of the year. Of the list, I have Past Lives and The Holdovers as my two personal favorites.
Yeah.
I recognize that Oppenheimer as a cinematic experience, as something that taps and checks every single box. You know, it's near flawless.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, as much as I recognize all of that, and this is why I think it will be a worthy winner of the Oscar, it's a movie that next year I will forget. I will not revisit again. I will not talk about it again. I didn't bring anything new with me when I left the cinema.
Some radiation.
Well, because the thing is, when I leave the cinema, I love to first feel everything in quantities. Like I love every single part of me to be stimulated in many different ways. And then ultimately, I love to leave the room a different person by being challenged to think about something deeply, thoughtfully, by learning something new about myself that I had not tapped into, by being confronted with something deeply personal that I may or may have not avoided. There are all these personal angles. And I think that movies like Past Lives, like The Holdovers,
Zone of Interest.
Zone of Interest, different. I think I'm talking about more at a personal level. Like Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Yeah.
Those were all things that, because the Zone of Interest, as much as it was deeply thoughtful and it provoked you into thinking and analyzing things, it wasn't relatable in the sense that I've never experienced that.
No. I didn't mean that, but as someone who's been to Auschwitz and like the whole.
Sure, but I'm meaning I'm talking about something.
Yes. I get you come from a different layer.
A different layer. I think all these movies that I've mentioned, Past Lives, The Holdovers, and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. It's like I laughed, I cried, I was tense, I felt light. It made me think about my childhood. It made me think about my relationship with my parents. It made me think about who I am in this world and what I want to achieve. Like it just tapped into all of these things. So these are movies that not only brought a lot more of an emotional significance to my life, but these are also films that I will want to think about and revisit them later on. I will want to sit down. Hopefully, if I'm lucky enough to have children, I would love to sit down with them and watch this film.
Yes.
The Holdovers, for one, for instance, I think it became an instant staple for Christmas movies. For Christmas season.
Without a doubt.
Exactly. So the same way we look at A Home Alone or It's a Wonderful Life or Die Hard, of course, as movies that we would like to revisit during the Christmas period. Or like my wife, The Sound of Music, she's obsessed with it, and I became obsessed through her. Like there are all these movies that are staples of this time of the year. And now The Holdovers is an addition.
Exactly.
And it's a good. It's not like, as much as I appreciate The Elf, it's not a meaningful movie. It doesn't bring the same things to the table as The Holdovers.
You mean?
No, because a lot of people love The Elf. Everyone, what's your favorite Christmas movie? I love The Elf.
No, I don't like The Elf.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was nice,
Yeah,
and I understand why it has a significance in the pop culture world. But I do think that the Holdovers is like a must.
Oh
see
yeah.
That will bring lots of different things.
You get something out of it,
Absolutely.
right?
So anyway,
As
so
opposed
this
to The Elf.
so this is my thinking with a lot of these films in
Yes.
comparison to Oppenheimer. So I appreciate the Oppenheimer. I would, if I'm just acknowledging it from the cinematic perspective on the acting, the technical bits, directing, all that stuff. Yeah, I can see why.
But longevity-wise,
Yeah, I just
but that's an issue we have with a lot of the winners, right? Recent
Sure.
winners, and certainly something that won't change as attention span grow shorter throughout the years. I think as we wrap up, expectations for 2024, because next year, God's willing, we'll be here discussing this again. So, what's on your radar? What's on your list?
Man, to be honest, I don't really have, just because I'm just not thinking about. I mean, obviously, Dune is
Yes.
a blockbuster that will blow our minds for sure. The first one already did,
Yes.
so we're very excited to see what comes after that. There are a couple of sort of like commercial sort of like blockbusters.
Yeah.
I'm looking
Yes.
to.
Same.
So and I always defer back to some of the comic book movies, especially
Yes.
because we're coming through a period where we're so
Crisis.
tired of it, and most of the movies that are coming out from the Marvel DC universes
Are not
have been
good.
very poor. But now there's some exciting news because Ryan Reynolds is doing the new Deadpool,
Yes.
which is bringing Hugh Jackman back from retirement of doing Wolverine. There's also James Gunn taking leadership over DC Comics and bringing back Superman. I'm curious.
Too little, too late. But
I'm
fine.
curious.
We
I'm
will.
curious.
Fine.
I'm just curious. And then in terms of actually more significant films, I don't recall exactly any precise names. But listen, if the bar keeps going as high as it has been for the last couple of years, because I feel that for the last few years I've been saying at the end of the year, we've had great cinema all year round. We've had great films all year round.
I think COVID put a little stop on that, especially 2020, 2021. But I respect and understand your point. I think certainly 2019 and 2023, which was, in my opinion, the first year where we finally recovered from, or the industry has recovered, certainly years where the bar was raised. I would just say, to your point, some of the titles that may help raise the bar, like I have some curiosity around Beetlejuice 2, not gonna lie, even though I'm not a big fan of Tim Burton. I'm very keen to see what Paul Thomas Anderson does with Vineland, the
Yeah.
adaptation of a book deemed unfilmable.
Francis Ford Coppola.
Sorry?
Francis Ford
In
Coppola.
Megalopolis, yes, that's on the list for sure. And again, some of the production, Dune, as you mentioned, Joker 2, let's see, the new Mad Max spin-off Furiosa.
Yes.
But there are some like interesting projects in motion, especially the new and latest Tarantino, or the upcoming Tarantino
Yeah.
movie with Tom Cruise.
Yes,
Tom
yes,
Cruise
yes,
and
yes,
Brad
yes.
Pitt and Leo and John Travolta, and
That'll be
everybody's
amazing.
gonna. I think it's gonna be. I think we need to also prepare ourselves to the fact that he's gonna use the same technique as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you have recreation of actual movies with different actors.
Sure.
So these may be just reduced to cameos, but I think it's, if there's someone who needs like this boost and get the actors back to everything we said about getting every single body in the Academy to vote for him, that's Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
I think it's I only think we're going to see that in 2025, but let's see what else comes up. But yeah, certainly from some of the titles I am looking forward to see this year. These are just some of them. Obviously, we're not aware of some of the movies that always pop up just because they don't have the visibility or the marketing machines behind them. On the horror side, I have to say Ty West's Maxine and Late Night with the Devil, and Nick Cage in Long Legs. If you haven't been paying attention to the marketing of that,
I saw a trailer.
ooh, but the teasers are insane.
Late Night with the Devil. What's that?
Ooh,
That's the talk show one.
that's a talk show one.
All right,
I'm
yeah,
really excited about that one.
I saw a trailer for it.
Yeah,
With,
it's like insane.
Damien. Well, horror is more you thing. than
Yeah,
mine,
yeah.
to be honest.
No, I mean, hopefully we'll get to. I was thinking like the only time we went to the movies together this year was Beau is Afraid.
Was that the only
I
time we went
think
to the
so,
movies?
yeah.
No. Can't be. didn't we see Jaws together this year?
Oh yeah, fine. Yeah, we went to see Jaws because we had never seen Jaws.
And what else? We went more. Come on.
No. I don't think we. Yeah, we went to see Jaws. That's right. But
Okay.
I don't think we saw anything else. So hopefully,
Man,
let's fix this in
you would have been
2024.
proud of me. We were playing the Blockbuster game here once, and it was that section where you need to give quotes.
Oh yeah.
And I got the Jaws, and I placed it, and I was hoping that my partner would know what the quote was. That we're going to need a bigger
We
boat.
wrote. She was like Titanic. No, I'm joking. Well, Duarte, I think that's all for now. And like we had plenty of hours of material here to edit for me to edit. But let's do this again next year. And here's to great 2024. And let's see how many we got right this year in terms of our predictions.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.